welcome everyone to this second panel on climate change series, the Africa region. We had the first one where we actually showcased more of Nigeria and so then some part of Africa, but that was brief. And then now we have more panelists from the other region, parts of Africa, East Africa, Horn of Africa, and would like to hear from experts around that region what climate change, the impacts, and then other issues that are related to climate change. On this particular panel, we have about 5 panelists, and I'll be giving you a brief bio about them so that you know who they are and the area of expertise and what we be expecting them to talk about. The first on the panel is Hortense Minishi. And Hortense is the president of the WCAP's East and Horn of Africa chapter. This is a new chapter in the WCAP's family, and but they have experience of a lot of things that they have done, and she is the president. She's a tenacious human rights lawyer, a global peace advocate, and an aspiring diplomat. Hortense is a dynamic leader who is passionate about protecting the rights of others. Hortense has for nearly a decade now sought to contribute to making the world better, safer, and sustainable for all by tackling the root causes of injustice and inequalities and advocating for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Her work ethics has been to uplift and elevate the voices of underrepresented communities and nations through building a strong partnership, direct assistance, dialogue, and policy development. Hortense has worked with varied international, regional, and grassroots non-governmental organizations to conceptualize, manage, and implement humanitarian programs in fragile conflict and post-conflict settings across sub-Saharan Africa, Europe, and the USA. She utilizes her legal and human rights training to lead and support impactful projects geared to advance justice, counter inequalities, strengthen policies, enhance greater accountability and projection for the most vulnerable. Throughout her professional career, Hortense has continuously worked on humanitarian responses, including the protection of children and youth in situations of conflict, the protection of women from sexual exploitations, harassments, and abuse, protection of human rights defenders, the protection of human rights for migrants and refugees, and countering global inequalities more broadly. She has conducted multiple workplace investigations on sexual misconduct and abuse for varied international NGOs and non-governmental organizations, spearheaded and launched a continental-wide regional campaign on youth, peace, and security, the Africa series. She also conceptualized interministerial high-level conferences, supported the creation of in-person capacity building trainings, and digital regional platforms for policy dialogue. She also helped durable solutions through resettlement and complementary pathways for hundreds of refugees, and conceptualized the WCAP's East and Horn of Africa chapter. Hortense is a recipient of numerous fellowships and awards, including the Exceptional Woman of Peace Award by Pathways to Peace, the Association of Public Policy Analysis and Management, Equity and Inclusion Award, the President's Student Leadership and Service Award, US Fulbright Scholarship, and Young African Leaders Initiative yearly, the Mandela Washington Fellowship. Her mantra has always been to leave a little sparkle wherever she goes, and she's determined to be that change we want to see in the world. The very, very rich CV bio and work ethics. We welcome Hortense. Our next panelist is Halima Nyota, and Halima is a young woman mediation and ambassador at International Center for Peace, Human Rights and Development, Africa, championing the role of young women in peace building and conflict resolution across the country. Her work focuses on issues of social justice, digital and human rights, climate, and gender justice. Nyota holds a bachelor's degree in information technology from Mount Kenya University and is currently undertaking her diploma in gender and development studies. She possesses a certificate in digital journalism, monitoring and evaluation with a vast experience in movement building. Nyota works as the team leader and executive director at Rising to Greatness organization, mandated to provide leadership to the day-to-day operations of the organization, ideating effective campaign roadmaps to end violence against women and girls, artisanal small-scale miners in gold extractives of Kakamega, and designing programs that respond to the effect of gold mining activities to climate change. She has had the opportunity to speak on urgency of mainstreaming gender in the climate action agenda during the COP27. Halima aims to contribute to a fairer, safer, and more inclusive world by 2030. Her report writing and linguistic skills are impeccable with a high command of English and Kiswahili. This, together with her rich interpersonal skills, places her at an advantage of delivering in a wide scale, in a wide range of humanitarian and social change interventions. Welcome, Halima. Our next panelist is Nasro Abbas Mohammed. And Nasro Abbas Mohammed possesses a robust background in international relations and international cultural strategy, serving as the president of Women's Solidarity Group. She brings a wealth of knowledge from her extensive experience in administrative management, logistics, and procurement. Her central focus as the president of this group revolves around implementing sustainable projects that provide vital support to disadvantaged rural communities in Djibouti. Nasro's dedication goes beyond project implementation. She actively works on enhancing professional and entrepreneurial skills, particularly among rural women. Her commitment extends to bolstering income-generated activities, promoting literacy, and creating awareness about the critical importance of agriculture, environmental preservation, and fostering peace. Among her engagements, Nasro plays an active role in various youth councils and initiatives, with a notable position as a valued member of the IGA-led Youth Council for Peace. Her commitment to making a difference extends to entrepreneurship, showcasing her versatile dedication to addressing issues such as unemployment. Her unwavering commitment to social causes is evident in her unceasing pursuit of positive impact, be it on the local, regional, continental, or international scale. Nasro's zeal for instigating change and cultivating progress is vividly demonstrated through her proactive involvement in initiatives that drive development, empowerment, and positive transformation. Her dedication and aspiration continue to serve as a source of inspiration, solidifying her as a symbol of positive change and innovation. It's our pleasure to welcome you, Nasro. We are happy to have you here. The next panelist is Diana Odiambo. She's an award-winning communication strategy specialist, communication policy specialist, digital strategist, and an experienced print, radio, and television journalist. Over the years, Ms. Odiambo has used her platform to design, curate, implement, and assess campaigns that work to uplift communities through amplifying and highlighting their voices so they can communicate on their own behalf effectively. Utilizing her 15 years of newsroom experience and her intense passion for storytelling, Ms. Odiambo has worked with over 30 A-list brands, including companies, both profit and non-profit, and individuals to curate campaigns around gender equality, ending poverty, climate change, integrity, and excellence, amongst many others. Ms. Odiambo is equally passionate about helping grassroots organizations increase their positive impact on their communities through effective communication strategies and practices. Through the CSR arm of her organization, she has supported local grassroots companies in over 10 African countries to raise their voices profiles. We're proud to have you with us, Diana. And then we have Miss Winnie. Sorry, I apologize in advance if I pronounce this wrongly. Winnie Chekomoi Mutai from Kenya currently works at the African Development Bank as the climate change readiness expert to the Green Climate Fund program. Her tasks include providing policy and technical support to countries in developing their own country readiness program that is an enabler to them and mobilizing resources from the Green Climate Fund. Her focus is in supporting these Yusophone countries by strengthening their capacity in developing effective and sustainable readiness programs. In addition, Ms. Winnie is currently the African Development Bank coordinator of the accredited entity by GCF in Africa to enable great alignment and communication. Winnie has had exposure and experience working in multilateral institutions within the international development sphere previously before joining the African Development Bank. Ms. Mutai served as the Embassy of Sweden to Kenya as an officer at the Embassy of Sweden in Kenya as an officer leading multilateral affairs at the EU, the UNEP, United Nations Environment Program, and the UN Habitat Matters, where she was responsible for coordinating and reinforcement of the relationship and partnership between Embassy of Sweden to Kenya and the United Nations Environment Program and the UN Habitat globally. She developed timely and high quality background papers, briefing notes, talking points, analysis, and other sustainable international and information and disseminate, information, briefing notes, taking points, analysis, and other substantive information and to designate to Ministry of Environment and Stockholm and EU regarding environmental governance of UNEP, where Sweden was the largest donor. Winnie has also previously served as UNDP Kenya as a governance associate within the governance and inclusive growth GIG portfolio, where her role entailed providing technical programming support to the GIG unit and project portfolios, including peace building, PVE cross-border projects, support to the Foreign Service Academy, among others. Support, strengthen, and integrate role of youth, women, and inclusion of persons with disabilities and vulnerable groups, embracing leaving no one behind principle in GIG portfolio and projects. She works closely with and offer backup support to GIG unit team and projects portfolio to ensure strategic planning, coordination with partners, and effective implementation of projects, focusing on achievement of results. Very impressive and a lot of ways for us to be able to network and learn from you, Winnie. Thank you for joining us. So with this, I think I will stop there, and then we'll start with the first panelist, and that is Winnie, who wants to go first. So I will call upon you. I read your citation last, and then we will be starting first. You have 10 minutes. It's 16:21, the Nigeria time. So I'll be stopping you in 10 minutes.
Rabia, did you want to do the video introduction?
Yeah, sorry, I did that again. I did it the last time. Yeah, no, we'll be starting. Yes, we'll be starting with the icebreaker video, and I'll hand over to Adonia to start the video. Thank you.
No problem.
and most of
noloshaydii hore way fiicnayd laakiin nolosha maanta waa daciif aad iyo aad bay u xunta xaaladdu aad bay xanuun ugu jiraayo waa wada naasha inta imikada way wada darbadanaya wax xitaa wallaahi koob caana u siiyo baahi daraaddeed uma hayo
Millions of people in the Horn of Africa are facing famine as they enter their 4th year of drought. In Somalia alone, it's believed to have caused the deaths of as many as 43,000 people last year. Well, now experts have concluded that the drought wouldn't have happened without climate change. Scientists from the World Weather Attribution Group say that as a result of human-induced climate change, the combination of low rainfall and high evapotranspiration, which is how much water evaporates from soil and plants because of higher temperatures, well, that would not have led to drought at all in a 1.2 degree cooler world. It goes on. Climate change has made events like the current drought much stronger and more likely. A conservative estimate is that such droughts have become about 100 times more likely. Let's talk to one of the report's authors, Dr. Mariam Zakaria. She's from the Grantham Institute for Climate Change at Imperial College London. Thank you so much for talking to us. Just how much of an effect has human-caused climate change had on this particular drought?
To understand the signal of climate change, we looked at 3 possible definitions. So in 2 of these cases, we looked only at the rainfall the rainfall event itself. And then in a 3rd case, we also looked at both rainfall and the effect of temperature. Now, when we looked at rainfall, we could see that in the region that we considered, there are 2 distinct rainfall seasons. So in the long rain season or the March, April, May rain season, there is a drying trend. Whereas for the October, November, December or the short rain season, there is no evident climate change signal, or rather there is a wettening trend in that. And then we also looked at, because given that the drought has been ongoing for 5 continuous seasons, we also looked at the rainfall over 2 years together. And in this case, we saw that there is no signal. But then, as it is with climate change, that we also should consider the effect of the regional warming and the impact of regional warming on rainfall deficits, and which is why we considered the combination of precipitation and the potential evapotranspiration, which determines the amount of water that evaporates from the soil through evapotranspiration. Now, looking at this, we could see that this combination of precipitation and evapotranspiration would have been has been made 100 times more likely in the current world as compared to a world without climate change.
Thank you very much, Adonia. We already, like we saw before, these videos actually highlight the intensity of the impact we are witnessing in Africa, and it actually, the stories, as we can see, really is really shows the intensity and the need for us to be able to do something rather quickly. I think in our agenda, it's Hortense that is supposed to go next, and after the video, but she's informed me that she's okay with going last after all the presenters have given their presentations. So I will still call on Winnie we will be starting first, and then after that we'll go with Halima, and then Nasro, and then Diana. So over to you, Winnie. You can start now, and if you have anything you can share. I think you're okay to share screen.
Okay.
So it's 10 minutes.
So,
But
just a minute. I'm trying. I can't be able to. I'm journeying through my phone because I'm driving. So I will just speak. Okay, if that's fine.
okay.
I'm journeying through by okay. So I'm going to talk about climate financing. I'm going to spend 5 to 6 minutes just to say what it is, why it's really important. So when you look at about climate financing, the big question becomes, how do we create access to climate finance? And climate finance are just resources that countries countries can mobilize in order to address the climate change situation. And so what we are having around the globe is what we call redefining of the architecture. And this would mean redefining of how the funds operate and how people assess them. So one of the big questions this year, and even this climate summit, there was a session on how do we ensure effectiveness and efficiency of the global climate funds. So I'm going to take you through maybe 5 global funds that most people relate to, and so I'm going to take you through. So we have around 7 global funds. So one is the Green Climate Fund, which is the greatest asset as it is perceived, and it was created by the UNFCCC, which provides direct access to national institutions to engage on broader ways and with actors in assessing the climate finance. Then we have the GEF. The GEF now, which is the Global Environmental Facility, its mandate is to support actions on broader array of interlinked environmental challenges and its predictable funding envelopes. Its limitations include a small scale of projects and its limited leverage and ability to scale up. So the Green Climate Fund takes larger projects. And what I would say, the Green Climate Fund was implemented in 2016, but its idea was to improve on the resources of the GEF, which is the Global Environmental Facility. And so the GEF weakness is it doesn't take large-scale projects. Its model is to take a bit of smaller projects compared to Green Climate Fund. And then we have the Least Developed Countries Fund, and this is managed mainly by the Global Environmental Facility. And its idea was it was formed to ensure it is dedicated to developed, it's a financial envelope where the least developed countries could leverage on. So now they call it the Special Climate Change Fund. It's the same. And so the advantage of it's flexible in terms of access and in terms of the funding you want to use. And then we have the adaptation fund. The adaptation fund, and the adaptation fund strongly supports from the developing countries, and it gives a focus to small scale projects, and it focuses a lot on locally led adaptation projects. So it was uniquely funded and developed, especially at the World Bank. And so this adaptation fund is managed at the World Bank, and it focuses on local adaptation projects. And then we have CIF, which is the Climate Investments Fund. And uniquely among the climate funds, the CIF mandate is to provide concessional finance at a scale to select countries for transformational programs for public and private entities. They rely entirely on MDBs, which is Multilateral Development Bank System. So the CIF is mainly managed within MDBs, and the MDBs are the World Bank, the Africa Development Bank, Asian Development Bank. So we tend to manage the CIF projects because they offer more of the concessional loans. and grants. And then we have the MDBs. And so the MDBs are funds. So MDBs in itself have a mandate to develop special funds. So for the bank, we have like the Climate Action Window Fund. We also have what we call the what I would call it. I'm just trying to remember. We have various many the Green Banks Fund. So us as MDBs, we are allowed to develop. We are allowed to develop funds that are going to help us efficiently help countries to mobilize financial resources. So with that, that's a nutshell of the existing funds. So I'm going to take you through what could be the deficiencies or areas which the global financial architecture for climate financing is going through. And what I mean by this, we are trying to change the way global funds for climate are assessed, but also they are effectively utilized and they are also effectively operationalized. And one of most was we needed to provide capacity building for countries to facilitate assessing climate finance. So now my country are prioritizing that provision of capacity building to countries before they assess. So we have what we call project preparation facility, and the project preparation facilities are to help in terms of mobilizing, and also they're to help in terms of preparing technical capacity within countries to assess the funds. And then we have what we call we have to encourage climate finance institutions to lean on their respective comparative advantage. So one of the questions we get is, all these funds look the same. So we have to really encourage different funds to be complementary and not competitive with each other. And so we are trying that especially within the bank, where because we have all these funds inside the bank's division of climate change, we are trying to ensure that we ensure complementarity, and where programs can be funded by both funds, they tend to be collaborated. And then also we have to harmonize and streamline policies and procedures when it comes to assess of funds. So you find each fund has its own policy and procedures for assessing funds. So the other change that global leaders have been talking about is how do we harmonize policies that when it comes to assess of climate funds, you know. The other thing is MDB's financial capacity and sectoral policy expertise to mainstream climate into all lending operations. So this is really tough. So what we are trying to do now as a bank is try to mainstream climate policies and operations within each division, whether it's health, education, agriculture, law division, because climate crisis is a cross-cutting theme. And one of the biggest challenge you have is a leadership crisis within climate change, and how effectively to deal with it, other than ensuring mainstreaming of policies across and climate policies across all divisions. And then also broaden the role of private sector financing. And this summit saw the biggest conference, the Green Climate Fund, which is the largest fund holding a biggest conference on private sector forum. And I think the idea is to ensure that we engage private sector a lot when it comes to mobilization of funds. And so that's becoming more broader. And I know especially locally, especially when it comes to women energy, access to energy, private sector forums are being encouraged to ensure that they are engaged in the climate finance conversation. Otherwise, because I don't want to take so much time, I wanted to say that at the end of the day, they are the politics of climate finance. And so one of the things we had a discussion yesterday is, especially as women leaders, we need to learn how to play the politics of assessing climate funds. They are there, but you have to engage within your networks, but you also have to be well acquainted when it comes to understanding of climate finance. That is one, to leaders, but also two, we need to ensure that even whichever institutions you're working in, we engage in leadership positions where discussions about access and how much allocation of finances, we are part of it. So that's something we are encouraging currently. And as I wind, climate finance is a big topic in itself. But the basic thing is you need to understand the key 6 climate funds operating and what are their weaknesses. And I have highlighted some of the changes that we are working on internally, but also globally, in terms to ensure that the operation of the climate becomes effective. And with all these changes, it will ensure that Africa countries have access to climate finance, because that's the challenge. And the challenge is always technical capacity, the process in itself, the rules and procedures in itself, the laws in itself become hindering. So we are trying to ensure this kind of engagement. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Winnie. That was a really brilliant one, and I have a lot of questions, and I'm sure the other participants too have questions. You've taken us through the different climate financing. I know about the Green Climate Fund and the Global Environment Facilities and some of the, but I will leave the questions that I have, but you've spoken about the capacity building, and it has always been one of the challenges that we have in Africa. Those building those capacity in order to be able to access those funds are the things that are critical. And it will be an ongoing discussions, and it will be a means of us to network with you, especially different organizations working in the climate change sector in Africa. So thank you very much. Without going over and taking too much time, I will call upon Halima to give her. And Halima, okay, and thank you very much. I didn't thank you for keeping to time, Winnie. You kept to time, 10 minutes. So Halima, I will take you to task also to stay within 10 minutes. Thank you.
First of all, Rabbi, I'll wish actually to switch off my video because I'm in a very poor lighted room. So I just wanted to make that request. So my name is Halima Nyota, and I am basically from Kenya. I'm a Kenyan, and from part of my introduction, I see that I work with women and girls in the extractive, looking at how does the gold mining activities connect to climate change, but also how does climate change directly interlink with gender inequalities? And I want to take this opportunity to thank the organizers of this forum for the opportunity to share. And I love the fact that today we are here speaking about the regional effects of climate change. And with understanding that we are Africans, and Africa as a continent, we depend highly on natural resources for survival, like barely for almost everything. Talk about housing, we have communities who still depend on trees to construct houses. We depend on rivers to get water. Like we highly depend on nature, as nature provides almost everything that we depend on as a continent. And basically my presentation was meant to highlight the existing inequalities, gender inequalities brought about climate change. And probably just to let us know that one thing that I have always known, that climate change has never been neutral, because it disproportionately affects women and girls. And I want to talk from the basic concept of being an African girl, being an African woman, being an African mother, sister or a brother, that the sole responsibility of getting to know whether a house has water, maybe for homestead use or even for animal, that is for cattle, it is entirely, it has dependent on women to get to know that. If it is the issue of the aspect of food security, that is food production, according to statistics, 75% of food production work is done by women. And now we are talking about climate change, which continues to pose risk and threats to women and girls, not just in Kenya, but in the entire continent. Right now, the conversation is on climate change, and the biggest question we are asking, how does climate change affect the gender inequalities that continue to exist? How does climate change undermine the contribution, the efforts that each and every stakeholder is putting in place to ensure that gender equality remains a discussion of the day? Based on the examples that I've just highlighted, we've had in a scenario, like I want to talk about my community where I work, that we've had women who, in the case of floods, we've had issues of landslides, children being buried alive, and it is women who bear the major burden. In a situation where there is disaster strike, women less likely to survive and more get to be injured. And this is what each and every region is experiencing, each and every country in East Africa, in Central Africa, in West Africa, and even the entire world is experiencing. And the question on who is bearing the larger burden of climate change, but also the question of who is in the discussion pushing the agenda of climate change. There has been a disconnect because those who bear the burdens are considered to be beneficiaries of climate action programs rather than partners and promoters of climate change. And I think one thing we are currently doing in the Western region is we're asking what is the position of women to the discussion of climate action, but also in the designing of interventions in terms of coming up with technology, designing programs that respond to the needs and concerns, but also the violations and the effects and the threats that are posed by climate change, recognizing that each and every voice of a woman and a girl matters and counts in this journey, but also prioritizing that we need to have young women speaking on this discussion, because in case of floods, it is them that are going to be forced to drop out of school, being denied the right to quality education. In case of drought, they'll be forced to go fetching water, being denied the right even to right to food or even right to shelter. And until we're able to position women of all sector, of all groupings, of all classes, to have this discussion, not, of course, most of the time we think that decisions are only made at the high level, but also looking at how can we maximize the discussion we are having within our communities, within our countries, within our regions, matter when it comes to making global declarations and global statements that inform climate action agenda. And I believe that the discussion we are starting here, looking at how does climate change affect women, but also how does that affect food security, how does it connect to the issues of sexual gender-based violence, issues of the inequalities that exist within our communities and within our villages that we come from. And my last thought and my last comment, because I don't know if I'm within time, but I think I am within time, is and there is a dire need for us to continue with the struggle of positioning women and girls, not just as people to share opinions, but also to contribute to the decisions that are happening within the climate action agenda, even at the national climate action plan that are being developed in different countries, the regional climate. Currently Kenya has been developing the National Climate Action 3, Climate Action Plan 3. And the biggest question we're asking, how can we position young women? How can we position women with disability? How can we position the transgender community within this discussion so that at the end of the day, we are creating more informed, but also inclusive climate action decisions? And the biggest call that we can put forward as we finalize of the African Climate Summit, but also as we prepare for the forthcoming COP28, we need to ask and see that the voices of each and every girl from the village, from the community, from both the rural and urban cities need to matter and need to count within each and every decisions on climate action agenda. Rabia, if you could probably take the mic back to you.
Okay. Yeah, we have some people who have not been able to hear. Is that it? Okay.
Was I breaking? Sorry.
Oh, no, I saw somewhere where a chat asking people to sign out and log in again. Okay, but it's okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much. You have also stayed within the time limit. And I agree with you that it's very, very important for women to be part of the climate action decisions. And this is something that comes up over and over again. If we talk about STEM, you talk about science in general, the question always comes, why do we need women to be in the decision making? And going by the world population of it's more than 7 billion now, with half, because it's like we had 49.6 to 51 point something. So for female and males, and for me in mathematics, that approximates to 50-50. So we can say half the population of the world women, half the population. It's a myth to say that there are more. It's more male dominated, and therefore you have 50% of population not being on the decision-making table on what affects them, especially when the climate change impact affects food. It affects health. It affects so many things that you have outlined. And therefore, if there's going to be any action for mitigation or adaptation, the women must also be able to have a choice. And in Africa, what we actually advocating for is to be able to have the voices of the women also heard. So thank you very much for your presentation, and we'll keep the questions and the comments until after every panelist has spoken. So I would like to hand the mic to the virtual mic to Nasro. Nasro, please, if you could make your presentation.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Hi, ladies. My name is Nasro, and I am from Djibouti. It's an honor for me today to be here as a panelist and also president, of Women Solidarity Group, which is an NGO located in Djibouti City. and we are dedicated to driving positive change in the face of climate challenges and trying to integrate also women in agriculture field. And now we are focusing with rural women in the rural zone. So today I'm here to discuss the effect or impacts of climate change in the Horn of Africa, in the Horn of Africa's country, but especially in Djibouti. So I'll talk as someone who knows what it's like to live in a place, where climate change is a big issue. Like, I grew up in the dry lands of Djibouti, which is about 90% of dry lands. And 9% also is like field for animals like as pasture, 1% as forest. So in Djibouti, there is no much land for farming, only about 0.04% of its total area. So we can imagine how dry is our land. So we are also among the countries with the lowest access to clean water, like clean drinking water. In our area, traditionally, we have always been more focused on being nomadic rather than, doing farming. Our elders or ancestors, they used to travel around with their animals to find food because, that was how they made, a living. But now things are changing. And at the same time, also things are getting harder because the price of fruits and vegetables are going up and the cost of living is high because of the changes in the weather, etc. Well, we now, we need to find good solution that can help us become, more self-reliant and avoid problems like conflicts over food. This is what we used to, here there are many conflicts between tribes and ethnics. So to avoid also farmland, conflict between people having to leave their homes because they don't have enough to eat, etc. It's it's like it's a chain of problems that are all connected, interconnected, and we have to figure out how to fix them. Now, there are many risks. The Horn of African country is facing many risks because of climate change. The weather is most of the time is very unpredictable. Like, we saw in the video, it's very true. Sometimes there are very heavy winds and then it gets very dry. So leading to, really bad droughts, huge floods, and etc. So it's getting, hotter in the global level. It's getting hotter faster here in this part of the world than in most other places in the world. So can you imagine? This causes a lot of issues like conflicts and we've seen displaced people because of conflicts and problems like rebels, extremist violence, army groups, such as Al-Shabaab in Somalia. They trying to take advantage of profiting, from instability to expand their power and their terrors and influence, in the area. So all this, mess up all the efforts or endeavor leading to sustainable development. And it's also a growing danger, which makes other problems even worse. They are like troublemakers, as they cause a lot of issues in politics, markets, and how also people get along in a place which is already unstable, and the weather also is getting very hot now in Djibouti. We're almost 50 degree, and it can stop also farmers. We have now created a small agriculture perimeters for in rural zones, but the farmers cannot go forward. And also it can mess up also fishing. We have fishing people community which lives with the fishing and etc. So also this brings big issues. We need to really deal with it. So now we have noticed some problems regarding climate change issue. There are not enough tools at the highest level of countries, especially in Djibouti, to meet the goals of reducing climate change and supporting development. Some of the aspects related to adaptation and mitigation are really insufficient. So I've also seen that there are issues with coordination and consultation between the private sector, representatives of civil society and government stakeholders, especially, regarding climate relating matters. Now, in terms of when it comes to, people, writing articles about the Horn of Africa, climate change and everything, one of a searcher called Muga mentioned that in 2019 alone, about 40 people of people in sub-Saharan Africa had to leave their homes because of natural disaster. And this kinds of disaster are expected also to happen more often in the future. And also according to AFD, which is a French development agency, they stated that in 2022 alone, 32 million people had to leave their homes due to extreme climate events, drought, floods, storms, in a global level, for emerging countries. But, our also sub-region is very affected by this problem. So the AFD also said that without addressing climate change, by 2050, nearly 216 million people worldwide will be forced to migrate within their own countries or outside of their countries. So, we have noticed that when it comes to migration issues, we've seen many people care about fighting climate change, environmental problems, but there are not any official laws that recognizes, this as reason for moving, especially in this part of the region, when we have people moving from Somalia coming to Djibouti, and we have people from Ethiopia coming to Djibouti. What happened last year, the video we just seen a few minutes ago. There are no specific rules for people who have, to leave their homes because of environmental reasons. So the only thing we have is only usually migration laws that every country here in Djibouti or in Ethiopia they use, and this also could create many conflicts between people, nations, and So the solutions for me are three types of solutions, and three different levels also. So the first solution I could say is a state level intervention solution. It's like the highest level. This means, the highest level when it comes to the country. So the countries need to create rules about the environment in their own areas, real rules that need to be followed and need to be respected. They also need to make plans that work well and, quickly, like investing in disaster risk reduction, etc. So I think for this thing, the government needs to secure some funding, and they also need to ensure transparency in its use. And as people, we are expecting, or we need to see good results and fewer risks. And and also the Congress, they have their part of responsibilities and the role. They should keep up the political pressure to enact, new laws that will limit, carbon emission. In the level of Africa, or this mostly apply to, the North country, but they still need to do what they can to make to keep the pressure on the political over the political institution, and to guarantee this change in the long term. And the second solution, it's applied to people, regular people like us, such as civil society groups, social activists, and more. When it comes to this group, they should make efforts like speaking up. We have influencers, we have many people, using social media today. They need to speak up and making sure our leaders, are making good decisions for us. And also they can use people, at home, they can use renewable energy like wind or solar power, etc. And avoid also wasting water. There are some, effort people can do, like don't throw away food, stirring, use the compost to help use it as compost to help the environment, or give it to the farmers. They will know what to do with it. And also, opting for fully electric vehicles if we have the chance, and make also our home more energy efficient. There are many some architectural design and using a certain type of equipment to protect home from heat and etc. They can also buy appliances that use less energy, etc. Buy local product, choose sustainable product, and always we need to remember to the 3R, which is reduce, reuse, and recycle. And third solution, I think that applies to entrepreneurs, NGOs, international community entrepreneurs like big multinationals, international financial institution, think tank, and etc. When it comes to entrepreneurs in the especially in the automobile, industry, they should think about how to make plans, trends, and cars better for the environment. And entrepreneurs also in other industries should also consider how to protect the climate in every thing they do. Like myself, I'm an entrepreneur and I use solar energy. They need to consult researchers, experts, and hire innovators to create like tools that respect the environment, and they are not also too expensive at the same time. For the NGOs, like also us, it's important to work on projects or focus on projects that make communities stronger and better at dealing with climate changes, like raising awareness about the dangers of deforestation, protecting animals and plants like fauna and flora, and overusing or misusing the sea for resources. We see this happening in the West Sea. Many Chinese big boats coming to overusing the sea, and we need to rebuild the managed ecosystems, and also engage in projects and at planting trees, promoting environmental friendly farming practices, so this could reduce poverty and deal with other problems that make people more vulnerable to climate issues. And so we need to focus more on projects that help the environment and the people. Now, within our association, currently in line with the project title, Implementation of Adaptation Technologies in the Fragile Ecosystem. This is a project initiated by the Ministry of Environment in 2014. We're planning to develop agriculture sector, and we try to give our farmers better tools to grow food, plant trees, take care of land, and protect environment to provide food, and also nourishing soil and fostering ecosystems. Now we understand that how much climate change affect us, I think we should have a strong connection to the land, and we should know how important it is to protect it. We are really engaged now to fix this issue by doing farming, better farming, better, with sophisticated equipment, managing water, and getting women to help with projects that are good for nature and farming in the countryside. Out there, the first victim of climate change. Agriculture is our option because it's super important for our countries, specifically in this part of Africa. It's like the engine that runs everything. Many people, especially in rural areas like Ethiopia, some part of Kenya and Somalia, they rely on it. So I think it's really important for us to take good care of all of these things and find better ways to protect them.
Naso,
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I wanted to let you know that we're going over the time, but thank you so much for those presentations. And as it is with all parts of Africa, and what we have seen, climate change also impacts on livelihoods in Djibouti and the fishing community and so on. Once you have that, then it will that means it will affect livelihoods and also food security. And the solutions which the three solutions, that's something that everybody will need to take as a kind of strategy and see how we manage it. And I think it cuts across all the countries of Africa. The government interventions, which is solely what the government needs to do and so on in order to be able to minimize or adapt or mitigate the impact of climate change. And then the people themselves, the voices of the people and their own action is also key to mitigating the impact of climate change. And finally, as you talked about international organizations, entrepreneurs, they will also need to play their roles. And we'll leave the questions and comments until we come to that. So now I will call upon, I think it's Diana Ashley. I hand over the mic to you for your presentation, and it's 10 minutes, please.
Okay, thank you so much. Good morning, afternoon, evening, everybody from wherever you're joining us from. And even as I just begin talking about showcasing the regional effects of climate change, allow me to start with a story. And my story begins in Narok County. Narok County is one of the 47 counties in Kenya. And my story begins in a small town called Nolpopong. So I took a drive to Nolpopong just to understand the effects of climate change and gender, because I focus quite a bit on the intersectionality between climate change and gender. Why gender? Because I'm passionate about gender. That said, any man in the room, it's not about a gender war. It's just about my passion. So I'm in the household. I'll call him Mr. Nolpopong. Mr. Nolpopong has 8 children, 7 of whom are girls and 1 is a boy. And he begins telling me about the effects of climate change in the region. This year, Kenya has had one of the worst droughts ever. And Narok County is one of the worst hit counties when it comes to drought. And in the last 20 to 30 years, climate change has really affected Narok County, with rainfall seasons becoming more unpredictable. There have been prolonged dry spells and droughts negatively, which of course affect crops and livestock, which of course has a trickling effect to the household. As I said with Mr. Nolpopong, he begins to tell me how the drought has affected his own family. However, he says one thing that strikes me, and he says that, you know what, I'm lucky because I have 7 daughters. And because I have 7 daughters, I can give one of my daughters hand in marriage to get some money so that I can buy some food for my family. You can see where I'm going with that, that when there is climate change, it affects the woman. And this daughters, as he talks about them, I say, and how old is your eldest daughter? Because my assumption is whoever he gives out in bride price is his firstborn daughter. Firstborn daughter is 14 years old. So you can see the trickling effect between climate change that then leads to a household being impacted, that then leads for diverse or measures that people take in order to save themselves. And who suffers in this point? It's the girl. So the girl one is underage, and so that brings in the story of early child marriages. And then in Norpopong, they believe in the female genital mutilation. So the girl has to go through the cut in order to be seen as a bride, in order for her to get married. I guess you can see where I'm going with all this. This is just one county. How about the other 46 counties? As I talk about climate change and what we're doing as a country, I must admit that Kenya has been one of the countries at the forefront of climate change. As a matter of fact, Kenya has been a leader in addressing climate change and was one of the first countries in Africa to enact a comprehensive law and policy to guide national and subnational climate action. We have the Climate Change Act of 2016 and the National Climate Change Action Plan 2018, which ended in 2022. I won't bore you with the many policies we have in Kenya, because when it comes to policies, Kenya is a definite winner in policies. However, the question remains, what about implementation? We've recently had the Africa Climate Summit Week here in Kenya, which was well attended, and I'm sure you've all seen the news out there. But like every bad marketing plan, so is the climate change story. A marketing plan has the 4 Ps. They say the price, how to price a product, how to promote a product, how to place a product, and how profitable is a product. But more often than not, we forget the final P, which is actually the most important P, the people. What policies do we have in Kenya that helps the people who actually go through the greatest effect of climate change, which leads to early child marriages? And if you allow me, I'll just read some statistics from Narok County that I was at. And we have our governor, he's called Patrick Ntutu, and he put a drought mitigation in place. But then in the same breath, he said about 115,000 families in the country and 130,000 school-going children were in dire need of food, reiterating that schools in areas affected by drought would also receive the relief food. However, what's more is that the rate of teenage pregnancies really went high in Narok County. And because of that, in 2023, Narok County reported 741 cases of pregnant teen girls between ages 9 to 17 years, both in primary and secondary school. And at least 332 girls were pregnant in primary school, while another 409 students below the age of 18 years were pregnant in secondary school. The report also revealed that Narok South was leading in pregnancies at 149, followed by Narok Central at 140, while Narok West Sub-County had 124 pregnant learners. This is just a story in just one county. I'm a storyteller, and I'm sure if you're listening to my story keenly, you're probably wondering, how then can Kenya as a country support its people through the effects of climate change? How can we focus from the main Ps, from the Ps that we already have that don't focus on the people? And I'll tell you that my answer is I don't know. In 2021, the county government of Narok, through the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, and stakeholders enacted a climate change law and its regulations in February 2021. The main purpose of this law was to create a fund that would be used to avail resources for climate community-led actions, develop a structure of utilization of the fund, as well as penalties for misuse. We have our Vision 2030, the country's principal development strategy, which underscores adaptation to climate change effects for the nation to advance development and increase the quality of life. And subsequently, as I've mentioned, we have quite the policies. However, as I end my story, And as I continue to use my voice, I'm wondering, this is County 1. I could tell you stories of County 2 to County 47. But as I tell my story, I still have no answer as to what my country is doing to protect its people from climate change. We have big talks of climate financing that never trickles down to the main person, the people. We have big talks of policies that never trickles down to who it hurts most, the people. I'm hoping that one day I'll be back in this call and say, this is what my country is doing to change the people. I'm quite the storyteller. I'd like to end there in just one county. And we'll be happy to answer some questions after that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diana. Yes, policies in place but have not trickled down. Funding also not trickled down, but it's at least it is something. Something is being done, and that brings us to what Nastu talked about interventions. The government, where areas where the government needs to intervene, and then also what the people need to do. There's an adage in my community, the Hausa community. They talked about if you want to climb high up, and then you are on the ground, and then you step on a paper, they say that you have made progress. So even as we don't see everything falling into place, the fact that something is being done, the fact that today we are talking about it, also means that progress is being made. And someone actually asked me when I said we're going to have a Zoom webinar on the regional effects of climate change, and he was asking what good will that do? We just keep talking and talking, and there's no action. And I said, at least talking about it actually means that we recognize that there is a problem, and that something needs to be done. It's better to really talk about it, share views and ideas, and then one day, like you said, we'll be here, we'll be back here, and we'll be talking about the success that we have recorded. If it is not us, those that will leave behind will be able to see those legacies. So thank you very much for your presentation. We'll leave the questions and the comments until the last. So now I will call upon Hortense Menishi to give us a brief on the East and Horn of Africa chapter. Then from there, we'll have our final comments by Dr. Malika, the Interim Executive Director of WCAPS. Over to you, Hortense.
Thank you, everyone. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, yes,
we can.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rabia and WCAPS HQ for organizing this, and a big thank you to the panelists for bringing out such an exciting and also insightful session with their remarks on the impact and the effects of climate change across Africa, and particularly across the Horn of Africa region. By name, my name is Hortense Menishi. I'm originally from Kenya, but I have a big passion for my continent and the people across Africa. I think I will just tie in everything that the panelists have said around. They are the experts. They are the people who are on the ground, are seeing this and are doing carrying out varied initiatives and holding leaders accountable to solutions around climate change. And I think in terms of the impact, I think we've seen how vast the effects are, from, people starving, people dying, people getting displaced, to aspects of, having conflicts across the countries that, transit the borders, to gender-related effects of, early childhood marriages and teenage pregnancies. But I would just like to share why I think the Eastern Horn of Africa chapter exists, and how then that richness in sharing of experiences and sharing learnings and lessons across the countries work to advance women representation and women leadership in the region. So today we had a sample of panelists from various countries, and while they spoke specifically some to their countries, to the challenges within their countries, Djibouti and Kenya, we do, as Eastern Horn of Africa, are representative of 12 other countries, and this would be Burundi, Djibouti, Democratic Republic of Congo, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, Sudan, South Sudan, Uganda, and Somalia. So while we did not have women from there, we can just relate to the fact that the effects of climate change, while some specific impacts might be unique to a specific country, some of the effects that we've shared today cut across or traverse all the 12 countries across the Eastern Horn of Africa. So our chapter brings together women from diverse backgrounds. We bring about professional women who are working in their fields to advance peace and security, running out different initiatives, carrying out advocacy or projects, or holding governments accountable in their own ways to elevate the voices of women and also lead as women in those countries. Our chapter hopes to have four main, our mission runs across four main cores, which are our 4 C's, which is to cultivate. Basically, when you think about cultivating, it's like tilling a land. It's like raising and developing, equipping, capacitating women to advance what they're doing. And then we also hope to not only cultivate, but also connect. We've seen across the 12 countries, this is a platform that brings together women from diverse backgrounds, women with diverse experiences, women who are working in diverse areas. So not only just climate change, there are women working in education, there are women working on issues relating to injustices, human rights violations, legal justice. And therefore, with that broad knowledge of expertise, we are hoping to, connect them so that they can share with each other their experiences and also share with the world what we as Africans are doing to, get solutions for our problems. Also, we are hoping to champion our women. So in the Eastern Horn of Africa, there is an issue around gender equality, and that has been spoken about in pieces here and there. There's always been a negative level around women, especially culturally, the attitudes and also political norms or policies that then are barriers to how we work or are seen in our communities. And therefore, we hope to champion the contributions of women across Eastern Horn of Africa regions, just to see that we are elevating and recognizing that women are not just vulnerable or victims of disasters or impacts, but they're also leaders in their own right and have potential to find solutions to problems within their communities, societies, their countries, and across the world. We are also looking to celebrate the contributions that these women, us as women, are doing within our countries, across our continent, and across the world. And therefore, we hope that as a chapter and broadly as women in not only Eastern Horn of Africa, but as African women, that we will be celebrating the contributions that we are doing, however little. Sometimes we feel like we are making very meager contributions of very small steps, and then or we make one big step forward and then 2 steps back. But in all that, we are still looking forward to celebrate the contributions of the women who have gone ahead of us, and the women who we are, and the younger generations that are coming after us, so that we can mentor each other, have intergenerational dialogues with one another, and help each other support one another to advance solutions that are making our region either unstable or fragile or weak, or whatever the case, or prone to conflict or other disasters. So I would like just to end there and say a big thank you to everyone who was on the call from the East and Horn of Africa region, and welcome members from across, everywhere in the world. If you're interested in joining the chapter, you're very welcome. Thank you, Rabia.
Thank you very much, Hortense. We are very much interested. We are already networking with you, and definitely we'll be doing more and more together. Now we might be going slightly above the time. We're supposed to stop 1 hour, 30 minutes, and we're supposed to stop in 5 minutes, but we are likely to go over that time a little bit, just a little bit. So we'll take questions, and then we will also take comments. If you can either unmute or indicate that you want to say something, then we can do that in about 5, not more than 10 minutes. Thank you. It's open now for comments and questions. Yeah, we have a lot of comments here. People are very much interested in your earrings, Hortense. And your eyes, somebody said your eyes are magical, and beautiful Kenyan girl. I have those in the comment sections. And there's also in the chat box, Adonia put in there, you can learn more about the Eastern Horn of Africa chapter, EHA chapter, by clicking on that link, and you will get more information on how to network and know more about the, yes. If there are no questions here, I don't know, I've not, okay, I've seen, I saw Salma Said.
Yes, thank you, dear Rabi, and also the rest of the team. Good evening. My name is Salma, and I join you from Somalia. Actually, this showcase, and it was interest, and I'm happy to participate. Actually, I have seen there's different participants who was representing their countries, but I don't see, I think, someone who is doing Somalia things, and I think Somalia it's very, very the country that has a front line in climate change crisis, that we are suffering a lot, and suffering prolonged drought and floods or all over these years. So I would like to participate the upcoming events or showcasing, since I miss these events. So I don't know how I can join this and maybe to be the network member of these things. That's my comment. So, and I'm happy to meet all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're happy for you to have joined us. I think I will let Hortense answer that. Hortense, I'm not sure it's Somalia is part of that your chapter. Yeah.
Rabi, say again that.
I said I think Somalia should be part of your chapter. I'm not.
Yes,
no, I'm not.
is.
Okay. Okay.
Somalia is part of our chapter, and as she rightly pointed out, Somalia has faced a lot of crisis in terms of climate change. Just even back from 1990, when the first Somalia war began, it was around food crisis and how then the resources within the land are used, and even coming now to issues around drought. So it's a real challenge. And as I said, today the panelists, we couldn't get 12 different panelists from all the countries, but it is a real challenge. We were hoping to just sample and showcase what is in the region, but truly, yeah, each country faces those challenges. Somalia is a big country that has continuously been impacted by this, leading to a lot of displacement as well, leading to a lot of death as well for many of the people there. So it's something that people within the country and the region are keen on and are looking into, and also it has attracted a lot of international response in terms of even the UN coming in to try and assist the AU, other governments trying to, because then it has made then the issue, it shows the nexus between conflict and the issues around climate change as well so vividly. So it's one of the things that we're working on, and I would invite Salma to also join the Eastern Horn so that we can also benefit from her expertise in that region, given that she is from Somalia. I think we're welcoming women, all women from the Eastern Horn of Africa region, given your different backgrounds. Please join us so that we can work together, support one another, and look to innovate solutions to these problems.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, dear. Thank you so much. I appreciate.
I have a question in the chat box from Dr. Chidima Aziki. Her question, she said, my question is, what do we do to ensure that there is implementation of strategies to stop activities of climate change, and also how to manage the existing impacts? I don't know if we have our panelists, Nasro, Diana. I know that Winnie has had to drop out. So anyone? Yeah, ensure that there is implementation of strategies here. Mm-hmm.
Yes, this is Dr. Ikbo from Nigeria.
Okay, yeah.
I may not know so much about this area, but I know that for implementation, it's continuous advocacy. This kind of webinar that you are having is enlightening women, enlightening people on this issue so that interest can be generated. Then for policymakers, continuous advocacy by groups like us or other NGOs to policymakers that these are the issues. Okay, these things that we have decided that these are the ways that these climate changes can be managed. Let's try and implement it. It's continuous advocacy. Anything that has to do with a higher authority, using government and the rest is continuous advocacy, continuous enlightenment program on the air, social media, and everywhere. And before you know it, it will now, when people hear things more often, it will now become second nature, and they start looking for ways to make things better.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ikbo. I see Halima. Halima has her hands up.
So I'll just respond, then you'd allow me to drop off.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
So for me, in terms of the issue of looking at in terms of managing existing impact, most of the time we've separated issues of policy and disconnecting them from the community issues. And I think this is one of the problems that we've had, that we are having climate action declarations that are developed and designed probably in New York, in Addis Ababa, and the person who is feeling the impact is probably in Khartoum or Turkana, who will never get that opportunity to go and attend a forum in UN headquarters or African Union headquarters, and that continue to be a good issue, that the people formulating the policies are highly separated from the people who are feeling the impact of climate change. And for me, I think for me, what I will say is there is dire need for us to go back to the communities that we come from, and that is what we are actually pushing, that if there is a community suffering from drought, we should not go sit somewhere and design solution for them, but allow this community to give recommendation on what they think should be done for them to address the drought crisis. If there is a region experiencing flooding, that community has the best practices to inform the intervention that can address the challenges they are facing. But the moment we take like developing intervention from a more theoretical aspect of it, it's where we go wrong. And two, in terms of implementation, just as Precious have said, is there is need for us to continue engaging, because we wait until there is flood is when we talk about climate change. We wait until a community is experiencing drought is when we start struggling on food aid and all that. But what if we start engaging each and every person, from you who has the knowledge about climate change to your family members, that this becomes a normalized conversation and not a donor-targeted conversation. Back to you, Rabia.
Thank you very much. Because of time, I'm going to cut off with apologies for anyone who has more questions, but I will just read this from Zamzam. Zamzam Muhammad says, I'm a college student and I have discovered this organization through a program. I'm originally from Somalia and I'm delighted to join this impactful group of women. I would like to join the listserv. I'm particularly interested in the role of women of color, the role women of color have in addressing the climate issues, human rights and peacekeeping in East Africa and Africa in general. Already there is the link, and you can network and you can join. Yes, you can join there Adonia has posted where you can join. There's a link there and you can click, and we're happy to network with you, and we're happy for you to be part of this family, the WCAPS family. And without more further ado, I would like to call on the director, interim executive director of WCAPS, Dr. Malika Glover, to give us those final comments, and then we'll try to end. Our time has been well spent. Then we'll close. I want to hand over to Dr. Malika, please.
Thank you so much. Time has been really well spent. This has been a wonderful panel. Excellent part 2. I'm so excited about all the rest of the panels that the Nigeria chapter is planning. Thank you all so much for being on the call today. I've very much enjoyed it, and I'm so glad to see so many women on the call, so many women from WCAPS on the call. I hope if there are any women on the call that are not WCAPS members, I hope you will join us. We have wonderful things going on, as you can see, and wonderful leaders of our chapters and working groups and other programs and initiatives. So I've been very excited to be on these calls, and I just really want to say thank you all. They have been very informative, very interesting conversations and dialogue that I hope we continue offline. And continue on as we move forward with programming for this year and also next year. So thank you all. Thank you, Rabia, for your leadership. I very much appreciate it. And thank you so much for allowing me to say hello and thank you to everyone. I'll turn it back to you, Rabia.
Thank you very much. Finally, I want to really give a big thank you to all our panelists, starting from Potens, Halima, Nasro, Diana, Winnie. You've all been brilliant, and it's my honor and privilege, and I'm very proud to be among such very brilliant and hardworking women. And it actually makes me proud to be a woman of color. I thank you all so much. We'll see you in the next panel. We'll be preparing that. Hopefully, if it's next week and we're able to put it together, you will hear from us. And if it's going to be in another 2 weeks or so, you will still hear from us. We are hoping that the next one will be the regional impact in Asia. And if that is not the case, it's likely to be maybe South America, but we will keep you posted. I want to thank everyone, all the participants joining us from the chapters and from the WCAP's headquarters. And a very big thank you to Adonia for, keeping the mail going and actually making sure that everything comes together. For this particular one, because I was so busy, I was so scared that it might not look very well, but it looks that it's actually surpassed even the first one, and I'm hoping that the next panel will also be a very a good one, and we have a very successful outing. So thank you all so much for all your being here. I saw one of my students, likely a PhD student, was an external examiner for her master's. She's very much interested in climate change and the environment. Jamila Bichi, thank you for joining. And I would say bye-bye.